since we first, got introduced to you and San Pedro Fish Market, we just thought like, wow, this is an amazing, business. So thrilled and privileged to be a part of it, and we're excited to be helping out. Helping make
Yeah,
this for
well,
the next 49 years.
Price tag's still on there.
I'm talking about.
And the name brand of the shirt.
On today's episode, I'm excited to be joined by Marc Pfenninger from Studios, our architecture firm. This is the team behind some incredible hospitality and retail designs, including the Eataly spaces that helped inspire our own rebuild. Marc has been working with us on the new San Pedro Fish Market, and we're excited to talk through the vision, the process, and what it takes to redesign a place with this much history. So, Marc, welcome to Fish Factor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Outside of some technical issues and a pending storm here in Southern California, a few inches of rain, I think I'm going to survive. In California, when it rains, everybody just goes and hides.
Yeah, I think as an East Coaster, I find that California drivers in the rain really everything slows down.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Not for me, but I've watched it. I watched it. Um, so let's jump into it. What are some locations and restaurants that you and your team have designed?
So a lot of our restaurants that we focus on is we've done the Eataly projects,
Mhm. Right.
mainly down there in LA, New York, and Las Vegas, and it's been a fun ride with them. They're an interesting client with a real vision that they're rolling around. And then a lot of our other food service venues that we do is actually more bespoke for just very specific corporate tenants or corporate clients, and where like for example, we do work with some of the big tech tenants in the Bay Area, and they go get a private restaurateur that they work with from the beginning, establish a vision, and really build a restaurant right inside their company just for them. And so it's pretty interesting to work in the with people in the restaurant industry. That they're a very different animal than a lot of our other clients. And what's amazing is how
Yeah.
creative they all are.
Well, so wait, do you have some that just create like explain that a little bit more, like a restaurant brand inside of their company? Is that what you said?
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting. Like some of our work with like the Googles or the Facebooks or now Meta, they'll
Oh,
they'll they'll sometimes they'll establish um, actually establish a relationship with the chef, and we start off with the chef, come up with a concept for the restaurant,
really?
and then right from there build a restaurant that's for that location, for
Hmm.
that for that group of people. It's an interesting ride because it's very similar to the hospitality industry, but it's for them.
So it's internal, more like I know Google has what thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Did you build or design Google's headquarters in Northern California?
We worked on what's called their Bayview campus, which is the
Okay,
big um, brand new building that's right in San Jose. And then I worked on their headquarters that are in San Francisco.
got it. So I know I saw some of that when I was in your San Francisco office a few months ago. I remember seeing like in the lobby, I think it was, there were some images of Google. I forgot about that. So
Hmm.
that would be an example of someone that needs their own restaurant, basically their own internal hospitality.
Yeah, and the what's interesting about the Bayview job is it's so big. Like one of those buildings is a almost 500,000 square foot floor plate,
Oh
and
my God.
in the ground floor there's actually multiple food service venues that the employees can go choose from that have different themes to them. And that's
Incredible.
pretty common. As some of these companies will put within their building or at the campus, they'll have multiple restaurants with different themes, and
Wow. I had
which
no
is
idea.
interesting. Yeah.
I know there's a company I had talked to a few times that's supplying Google actually is one of their clients. They supply them
Hmm.
with different foods and seasonings and spices, and they were telling me like it's basically its business all on its own because there's so many people in their campuses that they have
Yeah.
to feed.
Yeah.
I had no
And they,
idea.
and they have a whole food service team that just sets the vision. works with designers like us, works with chefs, and really creates everything from scratch. It's super interesting.
So how did you get into being an architect, or what's your story with studios?
So my story with studios. So as I was just talking, but before we started, I grew up in upstate New York, went to
Yeah.
Syracuse University,
Okay.
and I moved out here and started working with a real old timer. Um, we were doing basically high end homes up in the Sierra Nevada for Hewlett family, people like that.
Hmm.
And at some point, I decided to get into something, wanted to get something a little bit bigger. And the guy I still stay in touch with this guy, Jack Kemp, my mentor at that firm. I get together with him for lunch constantly. And he said, "Hey, here's 4 firms you should look at, and studios is one of them."
Hmm.
And in 1999, I walked into the office, and it felt like college to me. Like
Oh,
it just
really?
felt, but yeah, it's really, I describe it to the younger staff today that, like, when I walked in, there was a guy who looked like he crawled out of a biker bar. There was guys who looked like they had suits and ties on. It was just this diverse mix of people, and it reminded me of being back at Syracuse or school, where I was just exposed to people from all over the world, different walks of life, different economic backgrounds, and just to be in that environment was just super super exciting. And I immediately, I knew I wanted to go there. The space is a little bit messy. There's models everywhere, drawings everywhere. It just felt like a place for creativity. And started 1999, and it's been a great ride since. Love it.
It's a cool vibe in the San Francisco office when I was in there. It's like relaxing and everyone's kind of doing their own thing and there's just creativity everywhere. It's really cool.
Yeah, we're gonna need to get you up to. We just moved offices.
Oh, no
We
way.
Yeah, we just moved our office. We're actually really, the new office is a old brick and timber building, and it's I remember the old office that you saw, that all the staff was around like a donut of a main space in the
Yeah.
middle. This one's
Yeah.
the inverse. Everyone's in one space in the middle, and the conference was around the side. And you know,
Oh.
we're really we're pretty excited about it. So yeah, our lease. So it's time to change leases, and here we are.
Let me tell you, time to change leases is how we got to work together.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean,
before
you
we go into that,
guys,
I'm
what an
curious though.
interesting ride with your lease.
Yeah, man, that's a whole nother episode. So both of us sort of sit in the CEO role. I know we talked about it a little bit when we met at Italy in LA a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. But tell me a little bit about the story of how you got into the role that you're in now.
Um, it's an interesting story, and I think, part of what I shared with you, that I think is similar to your experiences. I spent 21 years at studios, working hard. Became a principal in 2010, and
Mm,
in our profession, principal means you're now responsible for the business. Like, you're responsible for creating relationships, responsible for the business, and but at the level of a studio. Um, I
mm.
didn't I didn't wasn't growing my career wanting to be a CEO. Like, I wasn't like sitting there at home saying, "What do I got to do to be a CEO?" Like, it wasn't on my career path at all. But in 2021, Todd DeGarmer, who was our CEO for 10 years, was stepping down. I mean, he'd been a CEO for a long time, and done amazing things with the company. And he was stepping down, and they put out a search. And one day I got an email that basically said, "Hey, you've been nominated. Are you interested?"
Wow.
And I suddenly realized I really had a fire for the company, and really wanted to see it, grow and
Mhm.
get better, and was very interested in it. And it was an interesting experience about how, I was, working with my partners, um, alongside them. But then suddenly, once it dawned on me, like, hey, I could lead this thing. Do I want to? I realized, like, yeah, I do. And but
Cool.
it wasn't. It was sort of accidental. It wasn't something I was sitting around planning on or plotting on.
Yeah. Did you, I mean, do you have a background in leadership? Did you have to study any kind of leadership or take leadership classes, or you just jumped in and did it?
Uh, the answer to that is a little bit weird. It's a little bit yes and no. No. When I started, no formal training in leadership, and
Mm.
um, but but I had been. It was an interesting time for me. I'm always like reading and being very curious about uh, just business and how you can grow as an individual. And the COVID time was really interesting because I started listening to all these podcasts from Adam Grant or different people
Mm.
around. I became really interested in organizational psychology. You know, really
Oh,
like how do companies relate to each other, and this is slightly related to my father was a social worker, so he was really interested in how groups of people get along. So
yeah.
I've always been interested in that. Um, and around 2018, my son got involved in competitive hockey, and I got involved in coaching. And the training around being a hockey coach for USA Hockey, I saw as so relational to running a business because a lot of it was
Mm.
around how do you coach people, rather than
Mm.
being a coach can be a guy who says do this, do that, do this, or a coach can be a guy who says, hey, how could you have done that better, and sort of get people to do things like sort of like
Yeah.
realize, get them to realize, to fill their own potential.
Right.
And since then we've had some really good um, consultants. Like we're working with a consultant right now called Within People that has just been really helpful in getting us to think about our organization and think about how do we get everyone to realize their full potential, and that it's not necessarily like on me, the leader, to do it, but it's on all of us to do better.
Right. I mean, our philosophy is how we've been shifting the culture is a lot away from telling to triggering. You know, it's more
Hmm.
effective to trigger somebody to see something on their own and they make their
Yeah.
like believe in themselves and really create self-led teams rather than having to go around all day long telling everybody what to do.
And how did you arrive at that, or what sort of training or process did you go through
Um,
to get to that?
for so I've studied business philosophy for over 20 years, 25 years
Uh-huh.
really, actually at a school in Northern California. And some of the students, it was never a tactical class to me. It was always philosophy, and it was
Hmm.
always business philosophy. And one of the fundamentals was human beings are more effective when you can trigger, not tell. Nobody wants to be told what to do. And if they do, it's because it's easier for them and it's not going to be their fault if it goes wrong. Well, you told me to do this.
Hmm.
And that's really
Hmm.
hard to lead an effective and competitive culture in your business if everybody's just waiting to be told what to do. So in other words, one of my friends took that to another level and said, "There's no more jobs. You're making offers, and the offers you're making are how they're not just about how to improve the business we all work in, but it's how to create a better life for yourself. And when you can connect it to what people care about, then you can produce what you're speaking of, which is really helping them develop themselves. But fundamentally, it's about creating a better workspace, better offers, being more competitive, because ultimately it benefits everybody in the company, which benefits you on a personal level. And then people can take it home.
Hmm.
And then I've brought in a couple coaching programs that help with that. One's my friend Ron, I've had on this podcast, Ron Macklin, has a whole system that he was president of a company in operations, and he developed a system. It's called the
Hmm.
Macklin Connection, which is really what you're saying. It's like building self-led teams, believing in people, and getting out of the way as much as you can. So, but it's
Hmm.
hard because our culture is like, especially in the restaurant industry, they want to come in and just tell me how to wash the dishes, tell me how to wipe the table, tell me how to cook the food, let me go home. And some
Hmm.
people that's how it's going to be, you know. But I'm noticing as we're building new locations and we're working on expanding the brand, or working on the media side of it and the new location, like the conversation that we have to have is different, right? To meet with your guys at studios, really, like I can't imagine what the process has to be like on your end to try to get out of people what it is they want you to design. So how do you
Hmm.
work with that? How does that process happen effectively?
Well, it's a lot of fun, but sometimes it's a lot of work.
Mm.
I think one of the reasons why I've always really loved studios is we were really founded on this idea that every project's different and unique, and every client's unique.
Mm.
And so it's which is the way of saying like the design process gets really fun when you feel like you really get to know your client and you're making something for them. The analogy I had the other day is we were talking to another potential client and I walked away and I was actually talking to Jason who's working with you and I said,
Mhm.
I feel like they want to buy something rather than have something made for them. And
Mm,
and we make things for people, and so I'm worried this is going to be hard because they're just expecting us to produce something and give it to them and say, here you go. And our process is very much one of saying, well, Michael, tell me about your company. Like, tell me about your business. If, in business for what I think 70, almost 70 years.
yeah, it'll
Like
be
what is
almost 70.
like what does that look like? Like the people who started it and handing it off and trying to become a fourth generation business. Like to me, all those questions come to my mind because it's like I want to understand that. So when I say here's how we could start to approach a design that represents you that represents San Pedro
Yeah.
Fish Market. And so we ask a lot of questions. We really want to know like about your culture, like what drives your culture, what kind of company are you, what are your values, and then for us it's trying to use those as clues for how can design become a tool to reinforce your culture.
Mm,
We
that's good.
one of our legendary clients here in the Bay Area was Silicon Graphics, and the CEO of Silicon Graphics said, "I want my building to be a strategic weapon for the best thoughts to occur." And so he thought of the design, and we love someone who thought like that. Like the building is really here to make the business better.
Yeah. 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 There were a ton of questions when we first met with. And that was Jason. Were you there? I don't remember who. Was it
It
you?
was Jason
I
and
don't.
Garrett.
That's right. That's right. Gosh, I just trying to think. It was such a while ago now.
Yeah.
And then I think it was a year ago in September when we actually went to New York and we looked at Eataly there and met with some people from studios. And the process has been really awesome. And what it reminded me of was this. Well, I think it was a marketing program I subscribed to at one point. But there was a guy in there and he was talking about how him and his wife wanted to remodel their home, and they were introducing all these contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And the last contractor came and said, "Listen," because they're all talking about you can do this, you can do that,
Uh-huh.
you can have this. But the last one just came and said, "Well, what's important to you?" And
Mm-hmm.
then shut up and let the spouse, the wife and husband, I don't remember, I think it was mostly the wife, talk about all the things that they're interested in, what they did, when they did, and then design from there. Whereas everybody else just came in and wanted to create what they thought would be cool for the house. And I thought, God, that's
Mm-hmm.
so missing in so many conversations. Again, it's another example, trigger not tell.
And I think what's exciting about the relationship we have with you, and I think how do we get it, so that someday like my best clients or best projects have been when it's all over, the client says, I feel like I was part of the design team. Like I feel like I
Mm,
was like we had I had a client, Pandora Radio, and one day the client just said, what's amazing is like the lowest guy in the totem pole can say, I got an idea. And before long, if it's a good idea, it's part of the design.
yeah,
And
no way.
everyone feels like they can contribute. And it's not to say we're not designing. We're like orchestrating. We're more like the conductor, like helping it along. But a lot of it is also like being a coach, like getting everyone to like use the
Yeah,
word, I think, trigger. Like how do you trigger people to really
yeah,
step up and take responsibility?
yeah. And also like invested in the vision, because that's another challenge, right? I'll speak this vision of we're going to do all these things for the company, and they'll look, you're insane. That's never going to happen. So like part of the role of the CEO is like, I know it sounds insane. I don't know how we're going to get there, but if we can all be on the same page and focused, it's not impossible. And
Yeah.
I find that's a big challenge a lot of times. It's like you sound like a crazy person when you speak the vision, but if you have the right team, you could achieve amazing things.
I think it's I was listening to one of your podcasts and you talked about something about your vision process, and I can't remember the word you used. It was like a mandate. You
Oh,
talked about like a set of rules that everyone agreed to, and it became a tool to empower people where you don't have to ask questions. Like you can say, hey, as long as I'm following the mandate, I can do this.
might have been. Well, we have like a vision mission stand that the ownership came up with.
The
That was one
stand.
of the
That's
things
what it
we
was.
did. Yeah, the stand. Your
Yeah.
stand. What you will do, what you won't do, what you might do. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
powerful stuff. A lot of people don't realize that. Put that up, sign it, let everybody know what it is, and then they know where you stand, and
I
then you have them speak theirs.
I think from a leadership point of view, um, uh, I found that really intriguing, and it reminded me of just when I was young at studios, but also over the time, just seeing some of the best things we've done. They've really been because someone felt empowered to do something. They felt
Mm,
empowered to, on their own, without asking for much permission, say we should do this, take full responsibility for doing it.
yeah,
Not saying, hey, I think we should, not saying, hey, like the joke, one of the jokes I have is the kid wants the keys of the car and you say, okay, here are the keys. And the kid says, whoa, 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 I just wanted the keys. I still want you to drive. I want to sit in the back and tell you where to go,
yeah, that's great.
versus our best moments is where someone like picks up the keys of the car and says, hey, can I take the car and go do this? And they do it. Like they take full
Right,
responsibility for it. And you're the way you talked about the stand as a way of clarifying that for a company so that people they feel like, hey, I'm empowered. If I'm fulfilling the mission of the company, I don't gotta, it doesn't, we shouldn't be a bureaucracy. How can we move
right.
fast? How can we, and move on? I thought that was really interesting.
It is the key to that I found is accountability, and so we also use the entrepreneur operating system because that really requires that you create a chart of accountability. Right, I'm the
Mm-hmm.
visionary. I'm coming to these big ideas, but you need an integrator, or it could also be a COO, and that person's got to integrate that vision to all the major functions in the company. But all those seats need to be accountable for what for the like the stand that they take and the responsibilities they're holding. Right, so it's like.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the Restaurant Development Finance Conference in Las Vegas this week. Ever been
Uh-huh.
to that?
No.
Huge. It's like overwhelming. There was 4 people that didn't have a sports coat on, and I was one of them. I
We're
was like,
dealing
oh,
with
I may have
finance
misdressed
guys.
for
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I mean, it was just all bankers and investors, and it's as I'm having conversations with them around, we're doing all this expansion, and this is our plan, and just looking to see, like, I was really trying to figure out in that sort of sales conversation between investors and myself, like what do we need to do to qualify for the conversation? Like
Mm-hmm.
what are the criteria and standards that you're looking for in order to work with us in the future so I can start designing that now? And what I kept coming across was who is accountable for your operations and how. Because really what we're doing is we're investing in your ability to scale, which means your operations have to be really dialed in. And I never even got to talk about you guys and the stand and all the bigger picture stuff I'm looking at. It was like, really, we just want to see who's on the ground. Because if you don't have them, we'll come in and replace them with our own people in return for the investment. I'm like, okay, well, that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. It's good to know. Now I know now I understand when it comes to accountability and what stand that I need to take on the operations side. This is what's required. And the other thing to think about is like knowing what's required, forbidden, and allowed is like part of the definition of authority.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be an authority in something, that's the response. Like, so I learned leadership this way. It always starts with trust. This is just one
Mm-hmm.
interpretation. There's
Mm-hmm.
tons of books, right? One of them is trust, and trust is knowing, um, are you, it's an assessment of sincerity, competency, and reliability.
Mm-hmm.
So are you sincere first? Do you say publicly or you say privately? Are you actually capable of doing it? And are you going to reliably show up and get it done?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can assess, like, I can trust this person to do it or not do it. If you can get past trust, then you get the value, which is an assessment of importance, utility, and worth.
Mm-hmm.
Like importance is consequence. If I don't use you, what's the consequence? Is it useful? And is there ROI on this?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I get past trust and value, I can go to authority, which means that Mark, what's forbidden, required, and law
Mm-hmm.
and allowed when it comes to designing my
Yeah.
restaurant. It's not going to create something the health department's going to shut me down with, right? And then the next part is like, okay, now I know I can trust you. You got all these accomplishments behind you. You're clearly valuable, and you have the authority to produce those. Now I'm going to let you lead me, which means that you can make interpretations about the future to get me to a place that I can't get on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to accept those interpretations, be willing to follow you as you're walking me through the design process.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do all that, then it's like if you don't trust or value, and they go like an algorithm in order. And if you can't get through all those, then leadership falls apart. And it's not just in a big relationship like you to me together in our companies. It's all the way down the line. Like when you hire somebody to say, hey, you're going to be in charge of this restaurant, and they go in and just say, well, I got the role, so you need to
Mm-hmm.
listen to me. You still got to build trust. They still
Mm-hmm.
need to know how to value you. They've got to grant you the authority, or they're just going to sabotage your leadership skills, and I'm going to have to get involved when I don't want to. So it's a big conversation on philosophy and accountability there. Sorry, I'll shut up now for a minute.
Yeah, and that's actually, I think, really interesting, because as we're our company's going through right now, establishing our next strategic plan for the
Mm,
next 3 years. And one of the things that we looked at, we looked at our last 3 or 4 strategic plans, and we sat and we said, you know what? All of these strategic plans are fundamentally financial plans. That's all they are. They're
hmm
just, hey, I want to
Yeah.
grow by X%. I want to do this type of work in these type of regions, and here's who's going to do it. But there wasn't anything there about what kind of company do we want to be.
Oh wow,
What
culture.
kind of practice do we want to be, and what's our culture? And
Yeah.
and I went and interviewed. We have 20 principals in the U.S. I interviewed all of them one on one, and did sort of like a SWOT analysis, and what came out of it was interesting. Was trust was like the foundation of everything, just for
Yeah.
owners. We need to be a company where we can trust each other, because we're an interesting company where um, we're not very top down. And what I mean by that is, a principal has the liberty to act in the interest of the company. He doesn't have to go to me and
Mm,
ask for permission to do, almost anything. Some things, yes, but like, Jason doesn't have to come to me to ask, like, hey, what should I do for design? Like, I trust him. Uh,
yeah.
uh, and it was interesting is, like, we realized, and then we thought and said, you know what, this strategic plan, we want to have it be a culture based plan. Like, we want to base it on culture, and that culture starts with a foundation of trust, but also spirit of entrepreneurialism. Like, how do we make everyone realize they have a part in the entrepreneurial spirit of the company, from me
Mm,
down to the guy we hire fresh out of school? That
yeah.
the guy or gal that we're hiring right out of school. Like, we want them to feel like, hey, I have a role to play in building trust with my clients, because the best client is someone who comes back. That's the best client.
Yeah. That's great. I was going to ask you because I think I saw on your LinkedIn page it says I seek out challenges, and the more complicated, the better. Something like that. Did I
Oh
get
yeah,
that quote right?
it's something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. What sparked that? What happened?
I think it came out of a series of projects that I worked on, that I ended up first getting assigned to, but then realizing I love these projects, and they're like,
Mm,
uh, one of the phrases these days is like the wicked problems, like the problems that people just struggle to solve or unwind. And there was a
right.
series of projects where I would just tilt my head at it and say, there's a solution here. I don't know what it is, like, but it's in the solution lies in, it appears so complex, but there's actually, I think, a simple solution here. And so, maybe the best example of that was the renovation of UC Memorial Stadium, which was 14 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
But it's a building
14.
that's,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah, 14 years. I started working on it in 2000, and was finally built in 2014. But it was a project where you just looked at it and said, it was a memorial to the World War I veterans, right? And
Yeah.
and it had been gone on, no love and no care for decades. And you sat there and looked at it and said, this is like, it's doing the opposite of what it was meant to do. Like, this was meant to be a solemn memorial to those who gave their lives, in the Great
Yeah.
War,
Wow.
and it's decrepit and falling apart. And it's not a foot. I mean, to me, I looked at it like, it's not a football stadium. It's not where you go and watch football. It's where the alumni comes back to reconnect with their alumni, with the college experience.
Yeah.
That's the service. That's the purpose of the building. It's a place of connection. And I just fell in love with it. And it was a challenge. It was hard, but 14 years, got it built, and it was so rewarding. And so I love
That
complex problems, just because I look at them and say, there's a solution.
I know there's something you said there that triggered me to remember the Fountainhead and Howard Rourke and building things despite what it's like.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the book from Ayn Rand on the Fountainhead?
So it has read it so long ago. It was
Right.
played every
Same.
year in architecture school. So
I was gonna
they put it
say
on the
it's
movie. They
probably
did
part
this.
of the
They
Bible for
played.
you, but
Yeah, they put the movie every year with the hero architect, willing to destroy his building
right.
in
But
principle.
it's like I'm sorry. Well, I hadn't read that book in a long time too. But as I was talking to you, I'm like, God, that reminds me of some of the passages I do remember of like what it's like to work with a client and create something that's like brings out the best in them as opposed to what they think everybody else told them is important. Like I don't know. It's just
Yeah. Well, but what I'm interested in is like we're talking about complexity and really complex things. I mean, I got to
yeah.
imagine your business is insanely complex, but yet from
Yeah.
an experience point of view, when you have lines down the street, like from the customer's point of view, my bet is they
Yeah.
think it's pretty simple.
They totally do, and they don't. Yeah, I would never recommend anybody get into the restaurant business. I mean, the margins are totally small. The regulations will kill you, and it's impossible to make everybody happy. But it's like a labor of love, and it was never really what I
Hmm.
wanted to do. Yeah, my I remember growing up working in the family business, and my dad and mom were like, "Go to college and don't get stuck here like we did," kind of thing. And I did. I worked in other
Yeah.
places, but I think ultimately it wasn't about the restaurant part of it. It was about the entrepreneurial part of it and being able to make decisions without the bureaucracy that I had found working in banking and insurance and other parts of my life. You still
Hmm.
deal with it, like what we're dealing with to open these new locations. You're sucked right back into this bureaucracy because we're on city or state owned lands. So, like the entitlement process and getting the permit, all that stuff is, like to open our temporary location, Pedro, I thought it was going to be 6 months, but it took 30. And like in retrospect, I'm realizing what we did was so
Hmm.
difficult. It put some other companies out of business that tried this model of like having a temporary location,
Hmm.
like they couldn't pull it off. So, in one hand, I'm like, having the tenacity to not give up, um,
Yeah.
being aware of how difficult things are, and just figuring out like it's so easy as an entrepreneur or even a designer to get, in my opinion, right, to get defeated by the voices around you and what people are told. So this is why I
Hmm.
was thinking of the Fountainhead. It's like
Hmm.
if you let other people's stories get into your head, it can tear your own vision apart. But if you can be really clear on what it is you're looking to do and
Hmm.
not lose sight of the purpose of it, you tend to be able to find a path forward.
Hmm.
We weren't the only business that got evicted on the waterfront in San Pedro. And I say eviction like it's not. I mean, legally it was an eviction, but we amicably decided to move on to get out of the way of the waterfront redevelopment. But there were dozens of businesses down there that didn't survive. So people make up stories like, oh, you must have had a special agreement, or must be nepotism, or there must have been
Hmm.
a table, an envelope
Yeah.
under the table kind of thing. I'm like, seriously, if that stuff was true, great, that would have been a lot easier than what we'd gone through. But
Yeah.
it really was like you had a pandemic and you had this displacement situation, and it was really about just saying, hey, we've been through this before, we'll get through it again, keep the teams focused, let's innovate, let's create some ideas, and let's keep working. And Monterey, like you're working on our project and on the wharf of Monterey, it's got a lot of challenges, but we're excited
Hmm.
about it, we know we can make it work. And I didn't realize the building had been there, it's also been there 70 years. It's like as
Yeah.
old as we are, and it's got all these challenges because it's on pilings and it's over the water and it's older, and whatever those are, but they're all none of them are insurmountable. It's really
Hmm.
about staying focused on, we know we have a customer base, they live up there, we know we've done something for 70 years that people really enjoy, and I'm just going to introduce it to a new demographic that happens to be our demographic because people drive 6 hours to visit us and then turn around and drive 6 hours home the same day from that area.
Yeah.
So it should be a no-brainer, but it's understanding and knowing that and being willing to really fight for it that I think makes the difference when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. One of the things that I mean, it definitely takes and the courage isn't the right word, but just like a tenacity to just not give up, like
Yeah, yeah.
just to keep going. You said something interesting about the mindset, like the stories you tell yourself.
Hmm.
And I think that's a big part of this, being an entrepreneur,
Right.
trying to grow a business, trying to convince people that they have a part in it. And I really think there's something to, psychologically about, what are the stories you tell yourself and how do you make
Yeah.
sure those are positive stories to keep you going? Because I'm sure I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but I've listened to podcasts where I've heard people talk about the power of visualization, and the
Yeah.
brain sometimes doesn't know the difference between reality and the story you tell yourself.
Right.
It
That's so
sometimes the
true.
brain actually thinks the story you tell yourself is reality. So you have to be careful, and so it's like, well, then tell yourself better stories.
Exactly
We
what I
will
say
get
all
this
the
damn thing built.
time. I'm gonna send you a book by a friend of mine about that when we get off. I think you'll enjoy it. It's one of my teachers. I might get this quote wrong, but he said constitutive declarations are as close as human beings get to magic because you're inventing reality with your language and you're bringing
Hmm.
it forth by speaking it to people, and you can literally just invent something from nothing that way, and we do it all the time. But it's really
Hmm.
about, are you doing it out of fear where you're like, well, I don't want to do that because it's dangerous, or it's like, I don't care, we're going to figure it out, and you determine that based on your background of experiences in the language, and just how the richer the set of distinctions you hold in language are, the more effective you can be in creating a reality
Hmm.
that wouldn't be there otherwise. So like that's why I'm always like kind of really interested in people that are in design for a living,
Hmm.
because it's so easy for us to just get in there, make fajita, serve fajita, go home.
Hmm.
I'm like, no, let's think outside of that. Like, what else can we do here,
Hmm.
and how can we create and invent and actually exercise that muscle to create a better business model and
Yeah.
better service for the customers and a better experience for the customers too. Yeah, actually, one of the fundamental things for us is customers come in and I look at our trays that we serve our seafood on as a blank canvas. You can paint it with any combination of seafood you want, and that's your creation for the day. And that's
Hmm.
what people really want, is that experiential, like that experiential kind of situation when they're visiting restaurants now. And we've been providing that for like 40 years.
Yeah,
So
that experience is so key, and I think it's the core to design, and it's the core to designing spaces. Like that's the when we are able to be part of creating an experience,
yeah,
and the client and who is ever using that space like really feels it, that's where the power really, that's when the reward really comes in, when you can just see something come to life in a way.
yeah.
It's so special.
Would you say that's one of the most exciting parts of your job, is being able to bring that forth for people?
Absolutely. It's the a lot of the stuff you described, like taking 3 years to get a permit, working back and forth with a contractor. A lot of that stuff that's the in the trenches work that at times when you're going through it, you're wondering like, why the hell am I doing this? But
Yeah.
but when it's done and you get to see people like occupy the space, and I mean, the stadium project that I told you about, we got that done, and
20 years.
Ed Denton, who was the campus architect for Berkeley, gave a talk up in there's a press box that sits over the whole thing, and he just said this project fundamentally transformed this site in a way that I don't think anyone saw. Like they didn't even, it wasn't thought was
Uh,
possible. It was a transformation that no one saw, and just to hear that from your client like was
yeah.
just, it was massively rewarding. And to
Wow.
see it, and to see the building come back to life. So that's it's that combined with like what I said, when everything's done and the client comes up to you and says, "Hey, this idea is my idea," or like that sort of stuff. It's really fun.
That's awesome. So I'm going to end with this. It's been a lot of fun working with your team. What Studios is working on for us outside of our project in Northern California, which is super exciting, is rebuilding our legacy location. So after being in San Pedro for 40 years on 55,000 square feet with 3,000 seats and leaving that, we're now able, and why we chose to work with Studios is we realized that we sort of had accidentally created this, what was a lot like what you did with Eataly, but
Mm-hmm.
strategic. Like what you did with Eataly was strategic. For us, we had a kitchen here, another kitchen there, we had a bar here. We were doing it and creating and inventing these to handle the crowds. And what my
Mm-hmm.
brother and I and the family were thinking is, it'd be great if we could do this with purpose. If we could find someone that actually could help us redesign this in a way that would be effective, so that we could create an even better customer experience as it reopens. And that's what we're working on together. I'm super excited to see what it'll look like. Our 55,000 square foot, 49-year ground lease We have a lot of room to set. It's not going to take 14 years to build, though.
No, better not.
It's going to be pretty awesome when it's done. It's going to be
Yeah,
awesome. So I'm really excited to be working with you guys on that.
it's looking like a great project, and we've I since we first got introduced to you and San Pedro Fish Market, we just thought like, wow, this is an amazing business. So thrilled and privileged to be a part of it, and we're excited to be helping out.
Yeah, well,
Helping make this for the next 49 years.
yeah, and there's some pretty exciting stuff on the horizon we can't talk about yet. But if things go the way I expect in the next few months, there's going to be some big announcements, and I think we're gonna make some real magic happen together. I'll put it that way.
Looking forward to it for sure.
Well, thanks for being a guest. I appreciate your time, and I'm going sideways again for some reason, so I'm going to sign off now.
Hey, this has been a lot of fun. Let's catch up next time I'm in LA.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, so I'm signing off. Fish Factor, Marc. Thanks for being on, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.